As December opens up before us, we welcome in the gift of reflection. We turn towards our holiday celebrations and search for common threads of meaning. We begin with Yule, the winter solstice, and we are invited to explore duality, cycles, and seasons, and to witness the holly king being overcome by the oak king. Yule reminds us that we all partake in the miracle of renewal. Hanukkah, the festival of lights, commemorates a time of miracles when the faith of the Jewish people sustained them to reclaim their holy temple and keep the light of the menorah burning for 8 days. Christmas, the celebration of Jesus' humble birth in a manger, offers us to revisit the miracle of birth and the desire to find saviors to heal the scars of humanity. Here in our church, you are just as much a holiday miracle as the turning of the earth, as persistence and dedication to a faith, as the creation of each new life. We see the love you give to others, the space you create to hold one another's joys and sorrows, and the generosity and spirit you entrust to this community. You are the holiday miracle. This community is one of miracle makers.
Is the Nights of Midwinter. The Nights of Midwinter. We light this chalice as a symbol of our free faith. We light this chalice to remember the miracle of the oil that burned for 8 days. We light this chalice to mark the nights of midwinter. We light this chalice as we wait for the sun to return.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you. It's always sweet to be with you. And so thank you to the Board of Worship and Rob and Ken and Leslie who invite me to be here and give such great support throughout. And happy solstice. Along with all of the holidays that fall at this time of year, solstice is, of course, our longest night and the official start of winter. And in years past, I came to the church on solstice weekend to make a despacho. And in case you are not familiar with what a despacho looks like, I have some pictures here. And this is a tradition from the Andes Mountains, where basically we make a big mandala style offering to Mother Earth out of flower petals and candy and things like that. And I think it's a really lovely practice for winter solstice in particular because it encourages us to slow down and be mindful and offer up gratitude for all the blessings of the year. And in creating this mandala, we're effectively making a little universe of all of our prayers and our thanks for everything that we relate to in the course of a day or even a lifetime. It's said that a despacho is a present for the elements to which we dispatch the despacho, but that time of reflection and love in making it is a huge gift to us. It helps us to recognize our place in the scheme of things and to reach out energetically to the plants and animals and places and people that we care most about. So in that way, a despacho is a multifaceted practice of reciprocity. So no group despacho indoors this year, but I'm grateful to be here with you this way. And the times have brought us into new ways of doing things. I know a lot of people, including myself at certain moments, have been dreading the winter this year, knowing it's likely to bring some disappointments. We've already been so cooped up and separated that to go through not just the holiday season, but the whole long winter without our usual routines and fun just seems like a lot to ask. But I've been trying to reframe that to make this season not just more tolerable, but also more meaningful. And to that end, I always try to learn from how other people have done it. Why reinvent the wheel? So I'm looking to my ancestors, particularly the ones from Sweden and Norway, who knew how to do winter. You might have heard of the Scandinavian notion of hygge, which has been sort of trendy in the past few years as a lifestyle and a brand. But in Denmark in particular, hygge is very popular, and it might be the reason that the Danish people are able to survive such long nights at the Arctic Circle and still be one of the happiest countries on earth. Hygge is loosely translated as coziness and contentment. I have another little image here. Oops. Here we go. So looking at this list of ways to, I guess, be more hygge, I don't know if it's a verb or an adjective or a noun, but I think most of us have at least the comfortable clothes thing happening already. But none of these ideas really involve buying anything or going to any great lengths. And in fact, it's the opposite. Hygge really seems to be about mindfulness and gratitude and appreciation for small blessings, not unlike the despacho. Hygge is about finding ways to slow down and soften and be content as you are, to be content with the winter as it is. I've also been inspired lately in my search for making meaning of this time by the NAP ministry, which is a movement that was started by and for Black people. And though their mission is really focused on the experience of people of color, I really appreciate their message, and I wonder if there's something in it for all of us. In one word, the NAP ministry is about rest. Rest as the antidote to the grind. Rest as a cure for feelings of unworthiness or not being or doing enough. Rest ultimately is an act of subversion. Rest as a boundary we set. And they're not kidding about being a NAP ministry. They do public events and retreats to encourage daydreaming, restoration, and downtime as a means of connecting with ourselves and our ancestors. To be constantly busy blocks our creativity, wears down our bodies, and leaves no room for the imagination or spiritual connection to take root. So rest is one very simple answer to so much of what ails us. This year, we can't do as much holiday stuff as we might have done in other years, so it seems like a perfect time to explore both hygge and rest. And a lot of solstice practices and poems and such focus on bringing the light into the darkness. That in this dark time, we see the Christmas lights or the star in the east, this year in particular, or bonfires or menorahs, and we remember that the sun won't be gone for long, that soon we'll have more light. And the lights that we see reflect our hope in the darkness. I love that. I think it's true. I think we need it. And I also think that we tend to dismiss or fear the darkness in a way that's not always helpful. We get very light and love, such that we disparage the darkness and shadow, whether we're doing it consciously or not. In some forms of goddess spirituality, feminine spirituality, and a lot of ancestral wisdom, and in some of the polytheistic traditions, we see that the dark deities and the dark times are very fertile, and they bring a lot of wisdom. So for instance, Kali in the Hindu tradition is fearsome, but if you're brave enough to sit with her, she'll teach you to lose your fear of death. And if you lose your fear of death, there's nothing else to fear. And that kind of theme is echoed in other traditions too, from Mesopotamia to Carl Jung. When we can sit with the big mysteries and shadows and big feelings, we start to discover how faceted and beautiful the darkness itself can be. That, for instance, our grief is a portal to a greater intimacy with life, or that the dragons of our fears are really just guarding some jewels in that cave. So while we don't want to live in the dark and be maudlin or morbid, all of these myths and traditions seem to be inviting us to find some courage and step into the darkness here and there. And that said, it's not easy. I understand the feeling of dread that a lot of people have been expressing about the winter, and I have felt it too. And some of us are handling really unsustainable things right now, like mourning lost loved ones, or caring for kids and homeschooling single handedly, or scraping by financially without an obvious end in sight, dealing with the sort of crush of existential questions about our country or the politics of this time, all while regular life keeps happening too. So I feel like this season it's especially important for us to draw from those myths and stories that have survived the ages. They're so much older than us. They're older than the pandemic. They're older than our politics. Our ancestors and our myth makers survived their winters too. So we're not alone in this. One of the myths I've been considering, especially this month, is the Christmas story. I mean the nativity, not the leg lamp one. And I think about Mary and Joseph making their way to Bethlehem. There was a lot going on in the world at that time. And Mary nowadays wouldn't have been able to get on a plane. So imagine being 8 or 9 months pregnant and traveling across the desert on a donkey while living under an oppressive government. And by all accounts, she didn't have a midwife. And I'm sure that there were 100 things that Mary would have changed about her circumstances given the choice. But she and Joseph did what they had to do. They did what they could. And we're told that their baby was the signal for a revolution of hope and forgiveness. And perhaps his remarkable birth and all of the hardship that surrounded it were part of what made him extraordinary and part of why the story remains. We tell it every year. And I'm not sure that that would be the case if it was uneventful. You know, if they were an upper middle class family and he was born right on time in a hospital and everybody made it home for dinner. Maybe there had to be some struggle and darkness in order for the story to endure. And that seems reasonable. I think if I look at my own life and the lives of my friends and family and clients, we're the protagonists of our own myths. We're doing hard things and we're surviving long winters, whether meteorological or metaphorical. I look to the myths and I think that at this time of year, especially this year, we have an invitation. We have a choice. And our decision's going to be rooted in what our nervous systems and our resources will allow, because we're not all in the same place with this. But I want to name the options, or maybe it's a both and. We can hustle, or we can rest. We can bemoan all of the things that we don't have and can't do, or we can daydream and practice hygge and appreciate the small things. We can bypass all of the darkness and hold our breath till spring, or we can dive into the mystery a bit and see what's waiting there for discovery. The mystery is tough. It involves not knowing, which is really hard for those of us who like to have plans and answers. Mystery means surrender and humbleness, and most of us aren't comfortable with those things. Sometimes we're afraid of the dark because we don't want to look foolish or weak or admit what we don't know, or because we don't want to find out what's scurrying in the shadows of our minds. We'd rather just turn on more lights and stay busy and ignore the tender, scary parts. That's human. A mentor of mine, Oscar Perez, wrote recently about the light and the darkness. And he said, "One cannot be glorified while disdaining the other. One is the intimate partner and reflection of the other, mirroring a sacred dance that has gone on since long before the birth of the earth, millions of years before your own. Darkness precedes all things. It is the cosmic womb, the foundation for all that exists. Nothing, including us, springs forward into the world from pure light. We all come from and return to darkness. This is the true meaning of the holy, dancing on the razor's edge of darkness and light, understanding that you will never understand the immensity of either, but dancing nonetheless." So this season, with all of its darkness, can also be gestation time. If we're brave enough and mindful enough, we can learn, we can heal, and make room for new inspiration and intentions for the new year. We can take a simple, cozy moment to give thanks for things as they are. Or at the very least, we can rest.